How's it going? Bermuda the Man here with a few lines here back in the workshop. This week, when words speak, character shifts. It's always good to have a mental image of who the speaker is. Who are you as the speaker when you're giving this poem? It's really great if you can get into that mindset, because then from there you have a character, and it can be like anyone, like a movie character. It can be another book character that reminds you of a person in your life. How do they act? Think about that. Think about their mannerisms. How would they go through this? How would they say it? Really try to create and find emotions that you can use when you're using your performance. All of these things will help you develop a character which is suited for that poem. The poem I've chosen for this week is one by William Carlos Williams. This is Just to Say. I'm choosing this one for several reasons. First, it's short, and that way I can read it several different times in a short period of time and give different interpretations. Second, because it lends itself very well to characterization. This is just to say, I have eaten the plums that were in the ice box, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me. They were delicious, so sweet, so cold. I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me. They were delicious, so sweet, so cold. This is just to say, I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me. They were delicious, so sweet and so cold. With the first character, I wanted to create someone who is confrontational. So you can imagine this thing happening in the kitchen in the morning of, or later in the afternoon. Late at night he comes home and they're having this argument over the plums. And so I wanted to be with little pausing, very force and stress on I have, forgive me, were delicious. These phrases where I stress really created the character as aggressive. It's at the end of a line, the point, moving on. Boom, boom, boom. With the second reading, I wanted to create more of a conversational, a question, did you eat the plums that were in the icebox? And so you see the person, the speaker, kind of nod his head, and he says, I have eaten the plums. And then he pauses and realizes, and he looks aside and says, oh, man, of course. And so it's those little gestures, those body languages that we're already attuned into, that really capture an audience and really let them figure out on their own, okay, this is what's going on. I don't need words to tell me this, or words can't express this. It's painting a picture with your body, assisting words, which is the beauty of performing poetry. With the third reading, I wanted to create a character that was different than the first two, the different perspective. And this is the character who has had their plums eaten. And so we find this person picking up a note and they're reading it, and as they're reading it, we can see this body language that's coming through with a slight nod, and then we can see a heavy nod, and then a forgive me, like give me a break, you just ate my plums, I was saving them for breakfast, this is ridiculous, this has happened more than once, this is not just to say. And so all of that frustration and that emotion is coming through with these nods and with the up of the paper. And so all of these little miscues really lets you know what I'm thinking. It lets you know, me as a performer, what I'm feeling. This isn't the first time. This has happened a lot. And the audience can go to those places if you do those little things. Pay attention to how all of the performances use verbal phrasing. Verbal phrasing is how you construct the lines of a poem and how in your performance. Because a poem doesn't necessarily need to be read as it's written on the page. And we can see this in the first reading when I'm just reading it through. There's no pausing, it's pretty straightforward. In the second reading, we can see when forgive me is coupled onto the second stanza. And so when we do things like that, it really creates new sentences. Where do I want to stress? And it creates a new picture of the poem. It creates a new life for the poem. In the third, it's pretty straightforward. It's line for line. Why? Because I'm reading something. I'm just actually reading a note, and sometimes it is appropriate just to be bland and straightforward and to the point in reading, like you're reading in a class, like you're reading a science book, with no emotion, with no personal behind it. Just this omnipresent voice that guides us through knowledge. So next week we're going to be going over pacing. Pacing is important for several reasons. First and foremost, what it does is it controls the tempo of the audience. It really dictates what emotion they're going to feel, how they're going to feel it, when they're going to feel it. And if you can master pacing, you can keep the audience on a ride that they never want to leave. And so, I'll leave you. Thank you for tuning in. And as always, undoubtedly yours, Bermuda.